Hello everybody, it's Toria here. Today I'd like to talk to you about two gentlemen. One is Elvis Presley and the other one is Pastor Bob Joyce. Pastor Joyce is causing quite a stir at the moment, and there are many people who are trying to find out exactly who he is. So today we're just going to have a wee look at that. But first, we're going to have a look at the life of Elvis Presley through my eyes. Now, I was never a big fan of Elvis until just before his death in the 70s. I began to hear from people who knew him just what his life was really like and what he was like as a person. Now, he was, of course, a superstar, and he had to live his life in the public. But he was a shy man, and he would have preferred to have more time in the background and push others forward. So sometimes he would go to concerts of his favourite singers, and he would sit in the back in the shadows and not be seen. But at the end of the show, he would make himself known. And so he was able to spend some time with them. Also, he was a man of great compassion. He had a singer who came to him and said, "I have cancer." And Elvis was quite a spiritual person. And he said to her, "Would you like me to pray for you?" And she said yes. So he prayed a little prayer for her. And they didn't know it right then, but she had a miracle and her cancer disappeared. Elvis was a spiritual person. He had memorized large portions of the Bible and he could recite them. And he did this because he wanted to know who God was, and he wanted to know God for himself. Now, as you know, in the latter days, he got very sick, and it's possible that there was a drug problem there. I don't know, but he looks pretty awful when he died, or just before he died. And so after his death, I heard that he hadn't really died, but I'd heard that before about other people, like Dave Kay. I'd heard that he didn't really die, but of course that was a load of rubbish. And so when they said that Elvis hadn't died, I just dismissed it. Fast forward to not many years ago, a new fella came on the scene, and that was Pastor Bob Joyce. and everybody was excited because Pastor Joyce looked like Elvis, sang like Elvis. His mannerisms were very Elvis, and uh, he did everything except wiggle his hips, because being a pastor, he wouldn't do that kind of thing. But people began talking about him and wondering. Now, Pastor Bob says that he is not Elvis. In actual fact, he says, I am not that man. Do I think that he's Elvis? I don't know. The only way that I would be able to truly tell is by seeing the DNA. And at the moment, I don't have anything that I can say. I have an opinion, but this broadcast is not to tell you my opinion, because I don't deal in opinions, I deal in facts. And I just want to let you know that I have actually investigating as to who this man could be. And if he says that he's not Elvis, well, I think that I must respect that. It doesn't stop me from looking into it, but I respect the fact that he has said that he's not Elvis. And as an elderly person, I can say that all this all this stuff that's on YouTube about him would be quite a pleasure. Now, if he's Elvis, his age would be round about nearly 90, 88, 89, I think, something like that. And so he would be needing to have time to enjoy his life. I don't know how long he will live, but if he is 90, or if he's Elvis and he's 90, he needs to be left alone. If he is Bob Joyce and no other, he says that he was born in 1951. That's a year younger than me. Well, he has taken on a church and then built a new church just recently, and his congregation is growing, and he needs to be left alone to do the work that God has called him to do. So, I would say that all this hoo-ha that's going on about him is not good for Pastor Joyce, and it would be a pressure to him. Now, you may wonder, do I think that Pastor Joyce is Elvis? I don't know. The only way that I would know is by looking at the DNA, and I have not seen anything. I've seen the similarities between the two men, But that doesn't mean that he is Elvis. The only way that one can tell is by actually looking at the DNA and seeing if they are the same person. Now, you may well ask, am I investigating? Yes, I'm investigating, but only the facts. I'm all about the facts. I'm not interested in what could be and what other people say. I want to know the facts. You may well ask, will I ever know? Oh, yes, I will know because I always get my man. So in the end, I will know, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you, but I will know in the end because I come from a factual point of view and I will investigate the facts. And I'm not one of these people that spends all my time looking to see if Bob Joyce is Elvis Presley. I'm not that into it. But quietly, I will just get into the facts and find out. Okay, now, what I'd like you to do is just pray for Bob Joyce that his life will not be such a turmoil and that people would come to see him to hear his message and to worship the God that he worships and not to be so worried about who he is or who he isn't, because in the end, what does it matter? It only matters to him that he knows who he is. He knows in his inner heart who he is. And he's saying at the moment that he is not Elvis Presley, and we must respect that. Okay, it's all in the respect of the person and giving them space to be who they really are. And in his case, maybe it's who he wants to be. I don't know. Okay, bye.